Alrighty, if you read the most recent TWAB, aka the This Week at Bungie, you got some shocking and potentially disappointing news regarding Trials of the Nine. Before we read that statement, a brief history of Trials. Way back in Destiny 1, Trials of Osiris was introduced, a weekend-only endgame PvP activity. Teams of 3 would go into matchmaking in hopes of earning cool new unique gear. Unlike regular matchmaking, Trials gave players a punch card that kept track of wins and losses. Winning all of your games on the punch card with no losses meant that you earned a one-way ticket, all expenses paid, to the Lighthouse, a very cool looking and exclusive location where you'd get additional unique gear. The experience was replicated in year 1 of D2, replacing the Lighthouse with the Spire. It was almost the same thing. Players could go to the Spire even if they didn't go all the way flawless, they just couldn't get to the very final area, and they got more gear for going flawless, but there was no adept gear for going flawless. Year 1 of D2 PvP did not go over well with a lot of the player base, and eventually Bungie took down Trials for an undetermined hiatus. Well, here's the latest update. Ever since Trials of the Nine went on hiatus back in Season 4, many of you have been asking when it will come back and how it will be evolving. We still don't have a timeline for when it may return, but we do want to give you an update on our current thinking about Trials. As longtime Destiny players know, Trials was released in May of 2015 as the original high-stakes weekend PvP event. Trials had an amazing impact on our game and our community. It was a pinnacle venue for players to show off their best skills, strategies, and gear. The 3v3 elimination mode combined with the card system created the coveted reward of earning a trip to the Lighthouse. With the introduction of Trials of the Nine in D2, we made a few changes to the formula which never really hit the same mark. We were unhappy with its role in the ecosystem. The new activity wasn't achieving the goal of bringing the community together every weekend. Both Destiny and the online PvP scene have evolved since 2015, so we don't believe that bringing back the 2015 version of Trials would accomplish what our goals are today. Until we have a solid prototype for a pinnacle PvP endgame activity, Trials is staying on hiatus indefinitely and will not return over the course of the next few seasons. When we have those new plans ready, we'll be sure to share them with you. Okay, a lot of info to unpack right there. I think what shocked me the most was, I thought that all this time Bungie was already working on the new revamped version of Trials and was at least kind of maybe close to unveiling it. Now, that is my fault for making the assumption, but I think it's a fair one to make. Trials has been gone for a long time, and it's been very highly requested by the PvP community at large. As Bungie mentioned, Trials in D1 was a huge deal. It greatly expanded the PvP player base, it got the game much more popular on Twitch, which in turn brought in new viewers and new players. It helped launch the streaming careers of many popular community members and was genuinely viewed as an overall big success for the game. I'll agree that with the introduction of Trials of the Nine in D2, the overall experience never really hit the same mark, but I personally think that was mostly due to the drastic change in the overall weapon and sandbox meta. Back in D2 Trials, it was the year 1 weapon system, primary weapons only, no shotguns, snipers, fusions, etc. It was mostly people hard-scoping lanes with long-range primary weapons like the Mida multi-tool, clumping together, and general overall team-shotting. Both Destiny and the online PvP scene have evolved since 2015, so we don't believe that bringing back the 2015 version of Trials would accomplish what our goals are today. I think this is going to be the main disagreement between Bungie and a large portion of the player base. Many community members have been very vocal about how the original version of Trials coming back would work great for the current weapon meta and would continue to breathe life into the game overall. For whatever reason, Bungie does not seem to agree, and therein lies the conflict. Really, the part that got me the most was Trials is staying on hiatus indefinitely and will not return over the course of the next few seasons, not months, seasons. We very likely will not see a new and polished endgame PvP activity for a minimum of a half a year, but probably longer. Remember, a season in Destiny is 3 months long, and we're looking at a few of them with no new Trials mode. I won't lie, that hurts. Now, I know it's better to push out an activity that isn't rushed and feels like a good fit overall, rather than rushing to a quick fix solution that may be broken or might not work well. But I'm genuinely confused as to how the original model of D1 elimination style trials would not work with the current state of D2. At launch, D2 was a very different game than D1, but with all the recent changes to the meta and the overall sandbox, we're feeling closer to D1 than we have in a very long while. So again, my question is, why would the 2015 version of Trials not work? Exactly. Now, I've heard from some people who follow me on Twitter that perhaps this isn't Bungie's biggest priority right now. There are other things out there that may need more attention than Trials. Things like exotic drop rates, matchmaking tweaking, the overall state of the comp playlist, additional sandbox balancing, and more. While I agree that the game is not perfect and there are other things that definitely need to be worked on, having some kind of endgame PvP activity like Trials, in my opinion, is way high on the priority list. To be blunt, announcing an improvement to exotic drop rates or comp matchmaking tweaks is not going to bring people back in droves to the game. This is all coming at a really bad time, by the way. Bungie has some fierce competition lately in the form of Apex Legends, the out-of-nowhere free-to-play PvP bombshell that pulled in 25 million players worldwide in a 1-week time span. Not to mention Anthem, a just releasing heavily anticipated sci-fi co-op space bonanza. Right now seems like the time when D2 needs more to compete, and we just got the news that the most anticipated endgame PvP activity is pretty much not coming back. Now, I know you may laugh, but I would like to attempt to be rational and borderline hopeful about the situation. Hear me out, stop typing. I don't mean blind positivity and corporate praising, all that. I don't agree with Bungie's idea to turn off and permanently shelve Trials. What I mean is, now, more than ever, we need to be hitting Bungie with clear and well thought out feedback on what we want to see either in some form of Trials or any endgame PvP activity. I know the first reaction to news like this for a lot of us is anger. Don't get me wrong, I am mad. But rather than letting your lizard brain permanently take the wheel with comments like dead game re, what we need to be doing is telling Bungie in a way that they will actually listen to without hitting the block button on Twitter about what we want in endgame PvP. I won't lie to you boys, with all the competition out there, I mean, I'm not gonna resort to the circle jerky D2 is dead, but yeah, there is a lot of competition, and I wouldn't be surprised if the weekly player numbers continued dropping in the wake of other good games. We need a carrot to chase. The competitive playlist, to me, is not a juicy and thick enough carrot for the majority of the D2 player base. Competitive is pretty harsh, and the only real reward at the end of the fiery and frustrating rainbow are the pinnacle weapons: the Luna's Howl, the Mountaintop, and the Not Forgotten. 3 carrots in total. For most of the player base, once those weapons are unlocked, people really have little to no reason to keep playing comp, because we're not lunatics and we don't enjoy unnecessary pain. Trials was the perfect stand-in. The carrot was there every week. A shot at getting unique gear, and most of all, the bragging rights that came along with being able to tell your friends that you made it to the lighthouse. For a lot of the current player base, getting rank 55 in comp and unlocking the Not Forgotten is a near impossible goal. It requires days and days and days of finding time to play and a lot of grinding. The lighthouse, on the other hand, was way more obtainable. 7 wins, no losses. By no means easy for everyone to do, but definitely easier than going for the Not Forgotten. And because the Not Forgotten is such a far off goal for so many people, this is probably why the PvP landscape feels so dry lately. You go in, you get your pinnacle weapon, and F it, we out, boys. All you have left to do in PvP now is pub stomp around in quick play or whatever unique time-based game-based playlist is out that week, like Iron Banner. We need more, and we need it soon. I'm really kinda bummed out about the whole thing. I know that in one hand, we don't want D2 to be a complete replica of D1 in every way, but Trials is something I would gladly make an exception for. A unique and brief competitive challenge that brought players together every weekend in the hunt of a common goal. It's not that long or harsh of a grind. Let's do this fun experience together. And for the record, I have never met more new players than I did when playing Trials with my own community. It was a bonding experience like no other, and I'll always remember it very fondly. Whatever Bungie has on the shelf, I hope it finds the same end goal as Trials did at its peak. And now, I want to hear from you. What do you think about Bungie's decision to shelve Trials? Do you think it's the right move in the long run? Or do you think we need something now and the delay may hurt the player base? Any and all thoughts you have on this, please let me know down in the comment section. I want to know if I'm looking at Trials too hard through rose-colored glasses or if other players miss it as much as I do. Anyway, if you're new around here, be sure to check out some of my other Destiny content and help increase my power level by clicking on the subscribe button if you haven't already. Thank you very much for watching. See you next time.